So I'd like to remind everyone that this is already the second session for the series of webinar. Actually, we had the first session last December 19, the topic where transportation and storage and retail. We had an enriching and interesting discussion because we have people coming from different sectors. We have people from the academe. We have people from the business sectors. At the same time, we have on board one machine learning scientist who also shared his experience dealing with the so-called AI and dealing with the machine learning technology. So hopefully we are really hoping and praying that everyone who's joining with us this afternoon will have the same experience. We would like to introduce to you our first speaker for this afternoon. He is one of the Project Sale 2.0 researcher, and he is in charge of the topic government's impact or the impact of AI in government. So friends, help me in welcoming Mr. Carl Lawrence G. Diamante, LPT, our Sale Project 2.0 researcher in government. Sir Carl, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Ms. JL. Thank you very much, everyone. So this is my talk, Artificial Intelligence in Government, a Double-Edged Sword. So allow me to introduce myself. My name is Carl Lawrence G. Diamante. I'm a licensed professional teacher. I'm also the Project Sale 2.0 researcher for Government AI. I am a Bachelor of Secondary Education, major in mathematics. So basically, I teach in senior high school and college. And I'm also part of the Colegio San Agustin Bacolod faculty. To start off, I would like to present my talk outline to you so that we can be guided. First, we will talk about an introduction to artificial intelligence, what exactly is entailed by artificial intelligence. Next, we will talk about artificial intelligence in government, how exactly the government can improve based on artificial intelligence. Local artificial intelligence context, especially in our country, the Philippines. The advantages of artificial intelligence in government. The disadvantages of artificial intelligence in government, and as well as AI moving forward. With that said, let us start by answering the question, what is artificial intelligence? So when we think of artificial intelligence, we may be thinking of what we are exposed to in movies or perhaps science fiction. But artificial intelligence is in fact very real. Allow me to start off with a story. So in 2018, my students and we made a computer out of matchboxes. So we used matchboxes to replicate the processes of a computer. And we called it Project FEBI. FEBI stands for Functional Educable Bato-Bato Pick Engine. So basically, it is a computer made up of more than 1,000 matchboxes that could play Bato-Bato Pick or rock, paper, scissors. So how it worked would be like this. So each matchbox corresponds to a game state in Bato-Bato Pick that contains colored pellets. So we use 3 colored pellets, red, green, and yellow, to represent a different move. So for example, a red pellet represents paper. The green pellet represents rock, and the yellow pellet represents scissors. So to determine what move to play, the matchbox with the corresponding current game state, like for example, the pattern was first we played scissors, then we played paper, and then we played rock. We would open the matchbox that had SPR written on it. Every time that FEBI wins the best of 3 games, 3 pellets corresponding to the colors of the winning move she played are added to those game states. So every time that our computer was able to win, we would reinforce it by putting 3 additional pellets of the moves that allowed it to win. And then if it loses, it would lose 1 pellet for those moves that would result in a loss. So basically, the outcome is like this. If FEBI wins, 3 pellets per move are played. So for every move played that allowed it to win, we would add 3 additional pellets. Basically, what it does is, at the very beginning, it was completely random, basically trial and error. it would win some and it would lose some because it would be randomly generated, because the pellets in the matchboxes would be shaken, and then we would generate a random pellet by picking it manually, and then that would result in either a paper, a rock, or a scissors input. This way, winning strategies are reinforced and losing strategies are discouraged, meaning the more Febby plays, the more she learns the best strategy for each game state. So again, I would like to reiterate, this is a computer made of matchboxes that actually won several games against human players. Now, how is that related to our topic? This is Febby, so it's basically a computer, a manual computer. And these are the cabinets which represent the storage for our computer. And what we did was we listed all the different permutations for each of the different game states, and then we would reinforce the strategies that allow it to win. And we also generated a graph. And basically what we found out was a lot of human players have a bias for making their first move rock. So a lot of human players, when they play rock, paper, scissors, they would usually play rock first, which exposes a lot of human bias in ourselves because we think of rocks as solid or sturdy. So that also gave us some insight into human psychology. Now, how is that related to artificial intelligence? What if a computer could teach itself the optimal strategy for something or the optimal sequence of movements and events in order to win or in order to do something optimally and effectively? That is artificial intelligence. Basically, a computer that can teach itself. So artificial intelligence refers to technology which replicates human behaviors and abilities conventionally seen as intelligent, like, for example, playing rock, paper, scissors, but exponentially more complex. So there are different kinds of artificial intelligence. Now, the one that we usually see in science fiction is what we call general artificial intelligence, wherein the artificial intelligence can behave like a human in any situation wherein you put it. However, the current state of artificial intelligence says that we are years or even decades away from that turning point in artificial intelligence. General artificial intelligence is basically the holy grail of artificial intelligence research right now. Nowadays, we have what we call narrow artificial intelligence, or also known as weak artificial intelligence, which focuses on specific tasks, like, for example, playing rock, paper, scissors, or answering your emails, or filtering your spam messages on your phone. These are the kinds of artificial intelligence which are present nowadays. Of course, artificial intelligence also learns in different ways. One example by which is called reinforcement learning, by which we reinforce the behaviors that are constituting correct answers. We also have supervised learning, wherein an artificial intelligence is trained by a human supervisor to generate decisions. And also we have unsupervised learning, wherein the artificial intelligence can teach itself the correct and incorrect moves, or even efficient and inefficient moves. Also, we have different categories of intelligent behavior for artificial intelligence nowadays. We have sensing, reasoning, communicating, and moving. Now, a very apt example of artificial intelligence which is present nowadays are the virtual personal assistants that we have in our phones. Like, for example, if you have a Samsung phone, you would have Bixby. If you have Amazon, we have Alexa. If you have Apple, we have Siri. And for Microsoft, we have Cortana. Also, there are some groups which are perhaps pushing their own agenda because Bixby, Alexa, Siri, and Cortana are female. So there are also some feminist groups that are saying that it reinforces the normative assumption that women are submissive and secondary to men. So that also generates some debate regarding the genderification of our virtual personal assistants. So anyway, going back to our artificial intelligence in government, how can artificial intelligence improve government? You may be asking. Well, the use of artificial intelligence technologies in public administration can significantly improve work efficiency and client satisfaction. In fact, far-flung rural areas can greatly benefit from artificial intelligence because since they lack basic amenities, and especially if we have a government that is centralized, it is more difficult to deal with far-flung areas. If we have an artificial intelligence to take care basically of those far-flung areas, we would have more focus on them. Also, local governments have a lot of data available regarding areas affected by relevant social issues. If we use artificial intelligence, we could contextualize these to the relevant social issues pressing the environment or the communities wherein they are situated. However, this has to be streamlined in order to have efficient administration. Okay, so how is artificial intelligence even locally available? Do we even have such technologies? Well, of course, we have those virtual personal assistants, but we also have other applications of artificial intelligence currently available in the Philippine market or in the Philippine setting. Examples include artificial intelligence technology solutions being implemented locally by different industries in the Philippines. In government, we have several government agencies that already implement artificial intelligence into their pipeline. We have the Department of Science and Technology, the Department of Budget and Management, as well as the Department of Finance. So yes, artificial intelligence is really present in the Philippine government. Some local artificial intelligence capabilities include natural language processing. Now, what does this mean? Artificial intelligence can basically read, understand, and interpret human language. So it could tag different parts of speech. It could lemmatize things or perhaps determine the root words of different words. It could also tokenize these data. In other words, it could separate the punctuations from the actual words and speech patterns. We also have disambiguation, which is a capacity of natural language processing, which allows it to understand meanings in context. So for example, if you refer to a lift, it could be in the British context, it refers to an elevator. But in our context, it would mean a verb, which means to lift objects. So it could actually determine those things. Also, it is possible to have semantics with natural language processing, which understands the topics being discussed. So for example, if you are chatting a government AI chatbot and you're asking about current situations, it could answer in context, basically. And that is one of the many benefits of local artificial intelligence. We also have artificial intelligence that can translate language. Later on, I will showcase something which is actually quite unique to the Philippine language, wherein we have artificial intelligence technologies that can understand text language, Jeje or Jejemon language, and even Bekimon language. So Galingo, artificial intelligence can actually now understand those nuances of the Philippine society. We also have sentiment analysis. Now, this is a capability of artificial intelligence which allows it to basically mine people for their opinions as to whether they find things favorable or not favorable. Now, this could be helpful for government, especially if they want to determine if people find their government programs effective or not effective. And they could even specify the areas of improvement for our government officials. So that's a definite capability that local AI has. We also have speech-to-text or even text-to-speech capabilities, which can translate human speech into legible text. And we also have visual recognition and image insights. So we could use satellite images to perhaps map out possible flooded areas. So this is helpful, for example, for government agencies like Pag-asa. And just recently, we had the Typhoon Vicky, which just left. And if we have artificial intelligence, we could carefully plot out and map these paths of typhoons. Okay. We also have cognitive search, which is the capability of artificial intelligence to find the best match. Which is why, for example, if you open your YouTube, the next recommended video is possibly something that you might actually like watching, because the YouTube algorithm uses cognitive search. Local AI can also do that. Okay. And also, the other capabilities of local AI is it can identify land cover from optical satellite images. This is useful for automated change detection in landscapes before and after disaster events. So for example, if the government would like to respond to a landslide and would like to send search and rescue operations, artificial intelligence could directly identify the areas which need the most help, or for perhaps some areas which need relief. These are the different capabilities of AI in government, which would be very helpful. Also, we have flood detection algorithms based on radar satellite data, which are also being developed by the Department of Science and Technology, which would allow government officials to visualize the hazards and impacts of severe weather events, especially in the Philippines, where we are surrounded by bodies of water. We could perhaps preempt or avoid several disasters. Okay. Another very good application of AI is that it can detect current trends, especially on social media, and it can analyze multiple Filipino languages in even variations, like again, text speak, Jeje, and Becky. So if, for example, you are texting a government AI chatbot in text speak, or even Jeje, or even Galingo like Becky, it would be able to understand and it will respond in English. As of the meantime, it responds in English. Okay, but there are also some AI capabilities that would allow it to interact in, for example, Filipino. Okay, so it can perceive people's sentiments, gather public feedback, and use real-time monitoring features. So, for example, if you're a government official and you would like to know the sentiments of your constituents, then you can use artificial intelligence to give you real-time feedback and monitor the opinions of people regarding your programs. Also, programmable chat assistants generate automatic responses, which is actually very useful. And perhaps we have noticed that in our Facebook Messenger. Sometimes when we contact Facebook pages, they would give us an automatic reply. And sometimes these could be tailored to the specific industry wherein it is used. So that's also one of the capabilities of AI. And there are also local AI solutions that can automate form processing. So for example, one of the biggest downsides of manually filling out forms is it takes forever to get it processed. With the use of artificial intelligence, we could speed up the process exponentially. Therefore, humans don't actually need to do so much processing, which would actually eliminate some issues like red tape and other issues. Okay, and these technologies can seamlessly connect across multiple social platforms like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and so on. So these are the many advantages that we could get from artificial intelligence. What other benefits could we perhaps gain from AI, especially in government? Government agencies can greatly benefit from integrating artificial intelligence technologies because it can automate the curation of ongoing data. So for example, COVID response or the different incoming cases. We could monitor that. The Department of Health could monitor these updates in real time, which would allow the government to focus on more pressing issues that require immediate concern. Okay. Also, it can transform data into easily understandable stories. These are called dashboards, which AI can generate so that anyone can understand the data at one glance. So thereby accelerating data analysis and interpretation. And AI can actually generate interpretations now. Also, one of the most important discoveries or advances in AI is it can analyze and interpret regulatory text. It can analyze contracts. It could analyze government laws. It could analyze city ordinances and identify redundant or unnecessary information or unnecessary stipulations, wherein we would have an exponentially faster way of determining useful amendments that are more useful and suitable to the different constituents that government has. Also, AI can interpret and analyze human handwriting. So it can translate human handwriting into legible data, which could then be put in a government database, which allows for easier data visualization, management, and stewardship, as well as processing. So it wouldn't have to take forever just to get your license. Okay. Also, it can allow for event simulations and situational modeling. So artificial intelligence could allow government bodies to, for example, simulate the evacuation response. For example, for severe disasters like weather disturbances, it could plot out the most efficient routes for people to go through so as to minimize traffic, for example, which is a very pressing concern that we have here in the Philippines. So AI could do the heavy lifting of analysis and interpretation for us so that we can focus on insights and as well as analysis and creativity. Okay. And also, artificial intelligence can benefit the government because it can convert geospatial data into actionable insights. Now, this is especially helpful if we have a large geographical area like the Philippines, which is an archipelago. We have a lot of geographic data that we need to be able to generate insights from. Meaning we could just stop focusing on analyzing or surveying land, for example, and focus on what needs to be done, especially in the government, which needs to focus more on responses or being responsive than analyzing or bickering over the simple things, which could be actually streamlined using artificial intelligence. Now, does artificial intelligence in government pose any risks or drawbacks? Because of course, if anything has a lot of benefits, there are also a lot of disadvantages or even negative externalities when it comes to artificial intelligence. So does it have any? It has its fair share. So artificial intelligence in government has a lot of potential risks and drawbacks. And this is actually a huge cause for concern, especially if we think about AI integration in government. One of the most pressing concerns is the significant number of jobs vulnerable to automation. One of the most vulnerable jobs to automation, we have clerical work, like the work of secretaries or bookkeepers or even schedulers. And some researchers would suggest that the best skills to withstand automation are what we call soft skills, like teamwork, cooperation, communication, creativity, and critical thinking. These are things which are essential for the new generation of workers that we will have with the upcoming implementation or the inevitable implementation of artificial intelligence. And we also have technical skills. So the next generation would have to focus more on math and science and coding and dealing with data. So those will be the next trending amount of jobs that we will have in the future. AI poses a significant threat to the current job market. Some statistics or some institutes would even have the following statistics. Between 40 to 160 million women worldwide may need to transition into higher skilled roles by 2030, according to the McKinsey Global Institute. Up to 20 million manufacturing jobs worldwide will be lost to robots by 2030, according to the Oxford Economics. Automation will displace 75 million jobs, but generate 133 million new ones worldwide by 2022, according to the World Economic Forum. So some takes are more positive in this light. AI-related job creation will reach 2 million net new jobs in 2025. So there are different sources which would interpret it differently. However, it has to stand that AI has a significant impact on the number of jobs vulnerable to automation later on. Also, another issue when it comes to artificial intelligence is it still needs to address many privacy concerns and ethical considerations. For example, if you spend a lot of time on social media or on the internet, artificial intelligence has a lot of leeway to get information about you. Now, some of these would include your employment or your education records, your personal contacts, your phone, text, and even email correspondence, government records. So the government, if it uses AI in a more mischievous way or perhaps in a more sinister way, it could have a lot of information about you. Even your social media likes, friends, and preferences, they could tailor these so that they could generate ads that appeal more to their constituents so that they have a higher chance of being re-elected. Also, purchasing habits. So, for example, they would have cases wherein there are some government assets which are highly overpriced. So you could use these data against your own constituents. Also, browsing activity, location, and movement. Now, this is very scary because the government can actually monitor where you are going and your patterns of movement. So perhaps if you are a dissident or if you are against the government, assuming that it has sinister motives, you can expect a lot more worse cases. We also have intimate relationships and activities. So the government can monitor who you're close with and what you like to do, which is a very serious threat. Also, banking, insurance, and other financial information. It has access to these things, which would perhaps dictate government spending. So if you have AI access to these things, especially these things which can be made public, because some people are not very prudent when it comes to the information that they put online. Also, we have political choices and preferences. Some cases include political manipulation, like the case of Cambridge Analytica, which influenced the American population, especially in favor of a particular political candidate. So the same thing could actually happen here in our country. We also have access to genetic, biometric, and health data, which if you would assume that the government is doing its job well, it could use this to generate better health laws. However, there is always that risk that we are running. And also data connected from devices and wearables like your Apple Watch, or perhaps your heart monitors or your heart rate could be monitored, and it could be used against us as constituents, which is a very, very scary thing to think about. Even something as private as how many steps you've taken for today could be used against us. Also, another disadvantage of artificial intelligence is that it must deal with software limitations. A very famous example is in 2016, Microsoft came up with an artificial intelligence called Tay. Now, Tay was programmed to work or act like a teenager, a 19-year-old on Twitter. So Tay was an AI aimed at learning through conversations. Tay was designed to learn from interactions with real people on Twitter. Now, on paper, it looks very promising because you could actually interact with this AI as if it were a real person. In fact, in China, this was pilot tested and it had very positive outputs. However, in the United States, something very sinister happened. People started tweeting the bot with misogynistic and racist remarks, and the artificial intelligence would repeat these things because it's basically a parrot that would repeat these things to you in unpredictable ways. So in less than 24 hours after its launch, it was taken down by Microsoft. Now imagine if we had this kind of error on a government website, like for example, the Philippine News Agency, wherein we could use the artificial intelligence to perhaps gather news stories, but it's also susceptible to fake news. So that's very much a software limitation that we also have to be mindful of. Because as much as artificial intelligence is very efficient at finding these stories, it may not be very efficient at getting these stories in context as to what is appropriate and inappropriate. Moreover, AI is also susceptible to data bias and manipulation. Like, for example, in the 2016 election and the Brexit, it was actually influenced by a lot of Russian troll farms. So it's plausible that such propaganda and disinformation groups could one day adapt open source AI. One day, artificial intelligence will be open source, wherein trolls and other, for example, extremist groups could use this to further their agenda. So they could speed up their work of trolling or spreading their ideology. According to Jason Blazakis of the Middlebury Institute of International Studies. Also, according to FireEye, which is a data management group, the notion that text generating software will become a tool for online manipulation needs to be taken seriously. Especially right now, especially in the Philippines, we have a lot of fake accounts or fake news being spread by troll agencies, which are, as of the meantime, mostly operated by humans. If you could use artificial intelligence for sinister goals, it could exponentially increase the amount of fake news available on social media, which could undermine the democratic capabilities of our people. Also, garbage in, garbage out still applies to AI. Now, garbage in, garbage out refers to garbage inputs generate garbage outputs. So, for example, over 80% of the time spent on artificial intelligence projects are spent dealing with and wrangling data. Like, for example, you have to deal with noise in data or extraneous data that has nothing to do with what you are trying to test with your artificial intelligence. This means that many processes still require humans to prepare the data, and humans are susceptible to mistakes. So that's also something that we have to be mindful. Despite all the advantages of AI, we also have some human factors to consider. And humans have biases. One of the biggest concerns about artificial intelligence being brought forth right now is what we call black box artificial intelligence, wherein artificial intelligence would generate decisions and would not be able to explain these decisions, how it was able to come up with these decisions. Because artificial intelligence basically works on a series of neural networks. Now, these neural networks operate by a series of hidden layers. Now, these hidden layers are built into the code. And some of these AI technologies are proprietary, wherein you cannot question how the artificial intelligence was able to come up with these decisions. You may think that, okay, how is that related to government? Well, it has several implications when it comes to the criminal justice system. I'll give you an example. Wisconsin versus Loomis. Defendant Eric Loomis was found guilty by a lower court because he was assigned a high-risk score by an AI called Compass, which could actually determine if you have a high tendency to repeat crimes or not. So scores were generated using bar charts. Imagine you could find a person guilty or not guilty using bar charts, representing different types of risks like pretrial recidivism, general recidivism, or violent recidivism. When we say recidivism, it means the ability of a person or the capacity of a person to repeat crimes or to do the same crimes. The AI decided that the defendant had a high risk of recidivism and was at high risk to the community. However, since it was proprietary, it would not give an explanation as to why the individual was given a high risk factor. Now, if we consider the current cases of red tagging, this has a lot of implications in the Philippines, wherein an artificial intelligence could perhaps be used by governments to justify their proclivities for perhaps wrongly tagging people. And black box artificial intelligence would not allow people to explain themselves or to understand why they were assigned such cases or such high risk factors. In the end, the state Supreme Court rejected the defendant's appeal on the grounds of the right to due process. It was not, the defendant was not allowed to even know why he was given such a score. So that's a very pressing and serious concern that we have. Also, AI in government has the potential to enable discriminatory policies. This is what we call algorithmic discrimination or algorithmic bias. One of the more famous examples is Amazon. For example, in Amazon, they had a recruiting engine which used artificial intelligence to determine which applicants would be best for their jobs. Now, what they did was they used a 10-year period and they gathered all the resumes that they got and they were training the AI to learn based on the previous resumes that got through. Now, the bias in the artificial intelligence was that it was not very fond of women because the training data was mostly men. And it would reject resumes that contained the word women. Like, for example, a person or a graduate was from a women's college. So the artificial intelligence was trained to reject or have a bias against hiring women because the majority of the training data was mostly men because Amazon is mostly a tech company or it deals with tech. So how does this have anything to do with government? In the context of, for example, the American Civil Liberties Union is currently challenging a law that allows criminal prosecution of researchers and journalists who test hiring websites' algorithms for discrimination. Imagine you could be criminally prosecuted for questioning an artificial intelligence. Now, considering the rapid boom in artificial intelligence, what is stopping us from the same thing happening in the Philippines? And one of the more perhaps apocalyptic takes on artificial intelligence is its capability for autonomous weaponry, which also have a lot of potential for abuse. One very recent example is Project Maven, which is a project of the US military which uses AI algorithms to identify insurgent targets in Iraq and Syria. Using artificial intelligence, you could identify terrorist groups. Now, that may look well and good, but the question is, how do you define a terrorist? Because as we have established, artificial intelligence is subject to human bias. In fact, according to M.L. Cummings, the author of Artificial Intelligence and the Future of Warfare, the growth in the commercial information technology and automotive sectors could be a double-edged sword that will undoubtedly affect militaries around the world in as yet imagined ways. So that's according to M.L. Cummings. Also, one of the difficult things about artificial intelligence is that it is very difficult to find an AI accountable for crimes or perhaps misdeeds. In fact, there are legal repercussions because in the European Union, they have what we call the right to explanation, which was debated in the European Union's General Data Protection Regulation. The GDPR provides a right to information about the existence, logic, and envisaged consequences of automated decision-making systems, as well as the right to not be subject to automated decision-making processes. Now, the very fact that such laws exist emphasize the ability of AI to be exculpable from perhaps wrongly convicting someone. So who do you send to jail? The programmer? The U.S. Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency also launched the Explainable AI program, which is one of its safeguards against black box AI. to fund research on producing more explainable models, designing explanation interfaces, and understanding the psychological requirements for effective explanations. However, again, it is a very muddy watered kind of thing because it is very difficult to pin down what exactly can be held accountable and who can be held accountable. Even France and the United Kingdom have such safeguards to guard against the very hard to pin down accountability problem when it comes to artificial intelligence. That being said, how do we deal with AI in government going forward? Since we have seen that it has its benefits, but it also has several disadvantages. According to John F. Kennedy, every man, woman, and child lives under a nuclear sword of Damocles, hanging by the slenderest of threads, capable of being cut at any moment by accident or miscalculation or by madness. Now, in this quote, he was referring to the Cold War, wherein nuclear weapons was the biggest threat. Nowadays, I believe that we have a double-edged sword in the form of artificial intelligence. Because although we have improved efficiency, we also have to deal with job displacement. We may have natural language processing, but we also have to deal with privacy and ethics concerns. We may have multiple social platform integration when it comes to AI, but it also has its software limitations. It can be able to analyze sentiments, but it is also capable to be manipulated. Image recognition and insights is a very good benefit from AI. But if you have garbage inputs, it would also generate garbage outputs. It has a wider scope and reach. However, there is the threat of black box AI not being able to explain itself. We have a localized context when it comes to artificial intelligence. However, there is the possibility for discrimination and bias. We have real-time monitoring, but there is also the possibility of autonomous weaponry. We have data interpretation capabilities for AI, but there is the hard question of AI accountability. So it is a double-edged sword. However, cities all over the world are already using AI to support the integration of improved technological capacity for the good of society. Cities like San Francisco or Yokohama or Lviv. So these are some of the cities that have already integrated AI into their cities or their constituents. Developing expertise in AI is even believed to not only lead to economic growth, but also reduce corruption, according to some researchers. However, policies on the responsible adoption of AI, such as those being pushed forth by Project SAIL 2.0 in government, still need a lot of careful review, considering the potential of AI for abuse. Ultimately, we need to adapt to the inevitable integration of artificial intelligence technology for the development of a better society. So whether we like it or not, we really have to adapt because these are very real threats and concerns, as well as benefits and advantages that we could benefit from AI. So with that, thank you very much. And here are my references, as well as image sources. So thank you very much, everyone. I will now stop sharing.
Thank you very much, Mr. Diamante, for that very comprehensive and very enlightening discussion with regards to AI societal impact to government. So maybe a lot of us now are aware that it's not really far from the Philippine society what AI is, because basically, as mentioned by Mr. Diamante, we are actually applying AI in the government. As mentioned, I think if I remember it right, Sir Diamante, you have mentioned the Department of Budget and Management and the Department of Finance. So these are just two key departments in the Philippines wherein it affects the other or the rest of the agencies. So hopefully the participants right now are more appreciating what AI is, because it's not really far from us. As mentioned by our speaker earlier, it is around us, it is with us, and we have been using it for some time. And sometimes we're not just aware that it is already AI that's running behind the technology. So for those participants who have some questions or clarifications or some sharings of ideas, so please hold on to that. And for those who'd like to do so, I think we have already a good number of participants sharing through our chat box. Thank you very much. And as of the moment, because of the technological issues we have, we still don't have yet Father Tito because there's a problem with his internet connection. But for this time, as of this time, we'd like to thank Sir Carl Diamante. And moving on, thank you very much, Sir Carl Diamante, and please hold on because after the second speaker, we will have the question and answer together with our second speaker. Okay. So we have now our second speaker with us, who I think is ready. So we would like to introduce our second speaker. So after Mr. Diamante, who talked about what is the societal impact of AI to the government, now we will have the next speaker who will be discussing with us the possible impact of AI or artificial intelligence to education or to the academe. Let's all welcome Ms. Karina S. Jimenea, LPT, a project sale 2.0 researcher on the academe. Welcome, Ms. Karina.
Please allow me to share my screen.
Yes,
Again,
ma'am.
once afternoon, good afternoon and welcome. And as introduced, I am part of Colegio San Agustin Bacolod's project sale, Scanning the Artificial Intelligence Landscape team. I am Karina Zimenea, the researcher for the academe. And as the title goes, this series of webinars is part of our awareness campaigns on the societal impacts of artificial intelligence. And in relation to artificial intelligence technologies, we at Colegio San Agustin Bacolod, via its research project, are currently gathering information on different AI technologies. Sir Carl Diamante already gave a very informative and meaningful discussion on the basic things you need to know about AI as well as its threats, its benefits in the government. And to start, I'd like you to give a brief overview that we are now in the Industry 4.0, in the fourth industrial revolution. And Industry 4.0 is one of the hallmarks of artificial intelligence. The fourth industrial revolution includes the emergence of AI and robotics. We have 3D printing. We also have even the Internet of Things. As presented by the National Convention on Statistics in 2019, there are different likely unintended consequences that this may bring about. We have income inequality, risk to automation, and even unemployment for certain sectors that might require a lot of job automations. However, while advances in technology bring about benefits for institutions, it is worthy to be noted that every technology have its own externalities. This afternoon, I am delighted to share to you AI in the context of the academe or education. Perhaps we have here a lot of educators joining this webinar, and sometimes we try to shy away every time we think about or we hear about the word artificial intelligence. But this afternoon, I'll try to present it in a way that we can all relate or understand. So to kick off with my talk, allow me to present the topics that we will cover. So what's in it for you this afternoon? So I'll be presenting a brief education situation in the Philippines, to be followed by artificial intelligence in a glance, the threats or advantages and challenges of AI in education, and why awareness is a must. So for this year, we were all challenged by COVID-19, which has become a global health crisis. And due to the early outbreak of the pandemic here in the Philippines in early March, schools were closed over coronavirus fears. And as academic institutions are compelled to formulate plans on how to assure continuity of learning, one of the best solutions recognized is that we really have to move out of the physical classrooms and move online. That's why we are having now our online classes for those who are able to have access to internet, and the offline are modular for those who do not have access to it. And among this number, this one is presented by UNESCO, as cited by Joaquin Viana and De Sela. one of the researchers also on the impacts of COVID-19 in education. We have 28 million Filipino learners across academic levels who have to stay at home as one of the requirements for quarantine measures. Before we proceed, I'd like to ask or pose this question to you. What problems do academic institutions face? Again, what problems do academic institutions face? If you have something in your mind, if you have ideas, you may chat your answer or send a message through that chat box. Because we all know that even before the pandemic, educators and even academic institutions and stakeholders already have a lot of problems pertaining to education. And now that we have shifted online to another mode, educators are frequently experiencing burnouts and having troubles in adjusting to this. So let me read one answer from Sir Kurt. Thank you so much. Correct. We have plagiarism. Because right now, we have schools who are implementing or using already the LMS or the learning management system wherein we ask our students to submit work through that platform. And personally, as a writing teacher, I could relate to that wherein we try when students submit their essays, you would sometimes realize that this one has been copied and pasted from another source. So thank you, sir. That is one problem that we face. So let's continue. Let's take a look at this data from Jones in 2017. He wrote that in each June, over 21 million elementary and high school students start new school year. And among these, 4 million of them, or 18% of the entire student population, will be forced to attend extremely overcrowded public schools. And this one really goes beyond the prescribed class size by DepEd, which is usually 45. And in other areas, they have more or less 50 or 60 students in one classroom. So this is the situation when we're still having our face-to-face classes. And in a normal face-to-face setup, we also face the following problems: large class size, loads of grading tasks, and repetitive instructions. A large class size could mean a lot of papers. I also have here one answer from Father Tito. Digital gap. Okay, digital gap between the haves and the have-not. Okay, that is also one. So loads of grading tasks, repetitive instructions. So if we are to think of it, this actually sometimes takes most up of our time that we have compared to just having our classes or delivering already the instruction. However, we need to take note also that we are existing in the age of big data. Okay? I'll try to explain what is datafication to you by giving examples. So I have here, let's have information footprints. So you might be wondering, what is information footprint? Let's say, for example, on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, in social media platforms. These platforms, they gather and monitor data information of what you do, just like as mentioned earlier by Sir Carl, what you do, your likes, your preferences, your activities online or on these platforms. Sometimes our activities are used to help certain brands or products to market their services to us. For example, promotions that we daily see on the social media are results of monitored data. Last time, I was trying to scroll some laptop brands on social media, and after an hour, most of the ads on my feed are about the different brands or laptops or stores. So that is part of what we call datafication. And in education, we make use of this when we collect data from our students, their information, their personal information, even about ourselves, our classrooms, regions, and anything that pertains to it. That is basically what we mean by datafication. And when we hear the term artificial intelligence, and if we are not into data science or data systems, one of the common responses that we have is we try to pull back or we shy away. Most Probably one of the reasons why some would not attend some seminars like this because these terms they sound foreign or alien to us. So consequently, we tend to neglect and fear what we do not understand, such as AI. We don't understand it, so we sometimes fear it. But one thing that we should keep in mind or consider is that there is bound to, or it is bound to bring greater fears if we will not educate ourselves about the benefits as well as the potential threats or challenges of artificial intelligence. Which is why we are happy to have you in this talk now, which is to raise awareness. So how does AI come into play? I'll just give you a simple definition. I believe this was thoroughly discussed by Sir Carr earlier, as well as the things that can be done by artificial intelligence. So in simple definition, by IGI Global in 2020, it is a man-made intelligence used and demonstrated by machines and devices in contrast to biological intelligence. So in other words, these are things that try to do or mimic human actions. As mentioned also by Sir Carl, it could be supervised, it can also be unsupervised. So let's put it in the context of education. So allow me to discuss first the gains or what are the treats that we can get if we are to adopt AI in education or in the academe. We all know that the advent of AI tools, they aim to lessen the workload of the educators, while at the same time, we want to ensure that quality education will still be provided. And AI in education allows schools and teachers to do more. So what are these? First, it drives efficiency. It allows personalization. Personalization in what way? There are already AI technologies adopted in education wherein they can track or monitor the progress of the student. For example, student A seems to be behind in this subject. Then, that certain AI technology would make a learning path that is appropriate for the student in order to reinforce learning. So that is what we mean when we talk about personalization. Another thing is it streamlines administration tasks such as grading and the like. So I'd like to present to you examples of AI texts in education. I will not be mentioning the name of the specific tool or the developer since we are not really trying to promote or sell any AI texts. Again, I'd like to reiterate we are doing this for awareness. So these are just some of the tools. We have machines and tools for grading papers and doing repetitive tasks. In other countries, it was in China, they were able to design a technology that grades essays with 92% accuracy. Imagine, if you are an educator grading 200 or 400 essays, this could be of much help to you. So earlier, I remembered also what it was mentioned by our speaker that it could also scan your handwriting. So there is this technology that can scan the handwriting of the student and check it. So it has 90% accuracy. Another is we have chatbots, or you have your virtual assistants, which could be used in answering students' numerous questions. Educators here would really can relate to this. That sometimes we spend a lot of time answering to students' responses, especially now in our online setup. You would have there perhaps a lot of questions in a day, and sometimes they're just all the same. Another thing is we have our AI-powered smart speakers, wherein they display desired voice command. In one of the universities in US, they make use of this smart speaker, wherein data about the students, about the school, even the class schedules is encoded into that one. For example, the student forgot what subject is at 9 o'clock. So the student will just say, what subject is assigned to me at this? So the speaker would say, it's math. So technically, it somehow knows also everything, and it also gives feedback uh, and and parents also can monitor the students' progress. Another one, for younger learners, we have augmented reality and portable mini robots. So these AI tech companies also venture into products like this that cater to young learners. We are accustomed perhaps to seeing robots that are the size of humans, but we have this certain robot for children. It's just, it's portable, and it contains around 50,000 or 70,000 words wherein we can use in learning the language. It also have various languages, English, Spanish, and the like. And another thing with this portable mini robots that has the ability to communicate is that it has a camera which can also detect if the student is, or if the kid is sad or not. So these are just examples of AI tools which could be used in education. We also have text to speech to text. You say, for example, you have this document, a very lengthy document. If you don't want to type it down, don't want to write it down, you just say or read it aloud, and then it formats what you want to say. So these are just example of the tools. Sounds promising, right? But is it really all that? Is there something that, are there drawbacks to this? We need to consider that the effects of adoption, the effects of the adoption in education if it will not be regulated. So what are these then? If there are in fact a number of academic institutions that have incorporated the use of AI already in teaching and learning. So we have what we call automation. Automation is, as defined by IBM, is the application of technology, programs, robotics, and processes to achieve outcomes with minimal human input. So in education, it might lead to automation of jobs or certain activities in a job. So hence, human labor will not be that longer necessary for certain tasks in the workplace. Let us examine this data given by these job implications. So here we have the different, this data is compiled by Project SAIL-1 and taken from McKinsey Global Institute in 2018 and the Philippine Statistics Authority. So you have there the job, the automation potential. It is expressed in percentages and the average salary of each job. For example, if you are a mathematical science teacher, post-secondary, when you say post-secondary, it includes higher learning, such as in universities and colleges, as well as vocational schools. So what McKinsey Global Institute did is that they conducted a large survey on thousands of jobs. So for example, they listed, as a mathematical science teacher, what are the different and how many activities does a teacher conduct, for example, in a week? Let's say we have around 800 tasks done by that certain teacher. And according to them, 22% of these activities in the specific job could be automated. As well as in art, drama, and music, we have 21%. Secondary school teachers, except special and career technical education. Sociology teachers, we also have communication teachers. If you have noticed, the data provided by McKinsey, it doesn't really go beyond 22 or reaching up to 25%. So it only means also that the teaching profession has an incredibly low chance of automation. Compared to other sectors, the field of education has lower automation percentages. Most likely, the jobs that have higher automation potential are those in retail or in marketing. And also, you might be wondering, why is it that education has lower potential for automation? We cannot deny the fact that education is really a job that requires human interaction. And those that are teaching in special education or the elementary, they have very low chance of automation since you cannot really predict or control the behaviors of your students. So to continue, it was put forward by UNESCO that we have a lot of challenges if we are to adopt AI education. And since the outset of artificial intelligence, it has been facing difficulties to grow because educational systems in different countries are hesitant to revise and modify established system of education that is by Clancy in 1987. And one of the reasons pointed out is the concerns on data privacy. So now, what are these drawbacks or challenges presented or put forward by UNESCO if we are to fully adopt AI in education? So we have the following: developing a comprehensive view of public policy on AI for sustainable development, ensuring inclusion and equity for AI in education, preparing teachers for an AI-powered education, developing quality and inclusive data systems, enhancing research on AI education, and dealing with ethics and transparency in data collection, use, and dissemination. Let's try to have first the first one. As mentioned earlier, we need to really regulate the use of AI because of the potential threats. And public policies must be implemented, and it must be in partnership also from the local even to the national and international levels, so that we could also create an ecosystem wherein we could have AI serving its sustainable development. When you say sustainable development, it is the idea wherein humans would be able to still meet their essentials without compromising of the future generations. Let's say, if we are to adopt AI here in the Philippines, most likely those institutions which are big and they can afford it, they would be able to cope. But how about those schools or small, especially smaller private schools? How would they be able to survive if we are to fully implement this one? The second one is ensuring inclusion and equity. Even now, in the conduct of our online classes, students and teachers alike, we struggle with connectivity issues, and we really cannot deny the fact that there is a disparity in learning uh, compared to those students in opting for online and offline. So Philippines also must be able to somehow think or establish certain technological infrastructures to make this possible. And next, preparing teachers for an AI-powered education. Teachers and academic institutions must also invest in professional developments or seminars, providing them adequate training on the use of AI-powered education. Because sad reality is sometimes those teachers who are baby boomers or even Generation X, they have difficulty in the use of technology. So with that being said, what can then the academe do? What ways can they devise to solve this issue while not depriving these teachers of the opportunity to work? So they need perhaps to, and it is also for us to ponder what are the skills, what are the skills that we need to teach our students soon, thinking that 10 years or 20 years from now, AI would be here. What are the skills that they need to learn? Next, developing quality and inclusive data systems. And if we are leading really towards educational datafication, one of the concerns is the quality of data. So is the data correct? How much error will be put into it if it will be encoded online? And developments in AI can be an opening to increase the value of data. So we need to develop quality and inclusive data systems. Next, enhancing research on AI education. With the aforementioned challenges, research must be further done to uncover potential benefits and threats of AI tools in education. Will it be really good? Does the benefit outweigh the potential threats if the tool will be adopted? And lastly, dealing with ethics and transparency in data collection. So it prompts us to ask, how could we ensure that the data available will be secured And there might be problems regarding various ethical and data privacy concerns. Especially we are also dealing with minors or children. How can we assure that the data taken from them will not put them or their families into risk? How secured are we in dealing with this data collection? So to sum it all, we really cannot try to deny the existence of artificial intelligence. It's ubiquitous. It's here. Yes, it offers myriads of opportunities that could aid us in the education sector. However, while we look forward to the promises it brings, we must educate ourselves and be aware. And to formally end this presentation, I'd like us to ponder on this quote by Churchill that with opportunity comes responsibility. And that would be all. I hope you were able to have some takeaways on the different impacts or societal impacts of AI technology in education. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you very much, Ms. Karina, for that insightful sharing of possible societal impact in terms of education of AI, especially that we have a good number of educators, professors with us this afternoon. Actually, as mentioned by Ms. Karina, we can't do anything about AI because it's here. And we are moving towards advancement of technology because we are living in Industrial Revolution 4.0. We're in the heart of the Industrial 4.0 is really technology, advancement of technology as mentioned by the speakers, robotics, internet. So basically, we are living within the 4.0 world. It's just a matter of how are we going to adopt? How are we going to live with the 4.0 industrial revolution? And what will be our take on the fast tracking of the development of the 4.0? Can the Philippines cope with it? Can the education sector cope with the changes? Will the teachers, especially as mentioned by Ms. Karina, the baby boomers, can the baby boomers, especially those who are not used to using technology and computers, can cope up with the advancement of technology, more so with the use of AI? So with that said by our speakers, I think we have now Father Tito to share and give us a message because we lost him earlier because of the connection. But right now, I know that Father Tito is with us. Father Tito, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yes,
Jess,
Father
can
Tito,
you
good afternoon.
yes, can you hear me?
Yes, Father Tito, loud and clear, and you're visible right now. Thank you for being with us.
I appreciated the presentation of both Karina and Carl on this very informative presentations of the effects of artificial intelligence. I would like to welcome. No, this is a kind of a late in the sense that of my message to welcome you all of you to this series of seminars that is going to be happen. I think there going to be another two coming on the societal impact of artificial intelligence. This series is it's an awareness campaign of the Colegio San Agustin Bacolod on the impact of artificial intelligence to society. While we are still reeling on the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, we could be inadvertently sidelined or sidetracked by the ubiquitous presence of artificial intelligence, which has been with us even before the pandemic and will continue to do so as we transition to the fourth industrial revolution in the 21st century. This will transform all our lives and our jobs over the next 10 years. Thus, it is important that we recognize this phenomenon and to advocate for the responsible adoption of artificial intelligence. In a small way, the Scanning the Artificial Intelligence Landscape project team hopes to jumpstart a signature campaign to advocate for the responsible adoption of AI. That said, I would like to thank you for your presence and your interest in these webinars.
Okay, good afternoon again, once again. Due to technical and internet glitches, we lost again Father Tito. But Father Tito, thank you very much. At least we have the full, almost all the information and message that you have for us, especially for the participants. So Father Tito has mentioned that indeed it is not only an awareness campaign on the side of the SAIL 2.0 project, especially him as the director of the SAIL 2.0 project, but this is actually a jumpstart of advocating and campaigning for signature for participants coming from different sectors to help us come up with the number of signatures, because we are now trying to lobby to come up with a policy. Because as mentioned by the speakers, if you can still remember, there are some ethical issues that's happening if and only if we will not be prepared in dealing with AI's adoption. So basically right now, this is an awareness campaign. At the same time, by raising the awareness of everyone joining this series of webinars, and actually the plan of SAIL 2.0 project, this will not be only a 4-day series. That means to say it will not only be within this December, because we would like to reach as many people as possible, because we would like people to understand that AI is not only for those who are in technology, but AI would affect people across different sectors. So hopefully we are really looking forward that you get to invite your friends, your colleagues, and hopefully your institution will be joining us in the near future in campaigning for a policy that will be put in place in order to protect every sector in the Philippine society. More so, as mentioned by the speakers, if you can still remember, there are some issues, really major issues, that we need to look into, like accountability. If AI will have a problem, who will be accountable for the downfall of AI? Actually, just to share with you, last December 19, we have an ML, or a machine learning engineer coming from Malaysia, who's a friend of our project manager, Sir Hilado. He shared with us his experience that he and his team, a startup company, is moving from one project to the other, and they are now looking into the possibility of what will be their legal responsibility if and only if the AI program or technology that they're developing will fail. Actually, that is his concern. So we don't have legal people on board, but according to Sir Hilado, I'd just like to share with you, these are some of the gray areas that we have right now in AI. If it's not properly addressed, things will be very messy, things will be very chaotic, if I can say that, if we will not put everything in place. That means to say we need to anticipate, we need to put policies in place in order to ensure that these simple things that even the ML engineers are worried. So based on the readings of Sir Hilado, he shared that if you are an engineer or a machine learning engineer and you happen to develop an open source program, that means to say you are on the heart and soul of the program, you have a direct responsibility. However, if you are using a commercial package technology, that means to say you can be helped, like the IBM, the Microsoft can help you in possible legal battles because you are using a commercial package. So why are these ML engineers are questioning the legalities? Well, in fact, they are really into the technology, because he said that in the development of technology, they cannot have the so-called 100%. That means to say, in a normal, in a controlled environment, they can only have a 97% fit. So that means to say there is a so-called 3% error. If they get to push it to 100% fit, that means to say there is the so-called overfitting. So that's not possible. Even in laboratories, I believe we have here some clinical instructors, we have medical technologies. There is no such a thing as 100% accuracy, especially if you're going to bring it into a real environment. So there is a plus minus error. So given that question coming from an ML engineer, we are now more encouraged, and we're more pushed, and we are now more eager to really push this policy lobbying, because even them who are expert in the technology are now worried about the legalities. Also, as mentioned by our speaker a while ago, we have the so-called transparency issue. What if the AI gets to do data mining of our data? Miss Karina mentioned education. We are fearing maybe if the kids will not have enough protection, what will happen to their data? So I know that a lot of things are coming to your mind, dear participants. This is the time now for our open forum. We welcome everyone to ask questions to our speakers, to Ms. Karina and Sir Carl Diamante. And then we'll also have Father Tito with us, who is the project director. So if you have anything in mind, if you'd like to clarify things, or even if you would like to share something that you know of, or have read, or have come across with, please do so. Please share it with us. Anyone from the participants? You can use the chat box, or you can raise your hand. Okay, we have Sir Solidon. Intelligence is believed to be a gift of nature. Yes, indeed, sir. An ethical argument continues whether human intelligence is to be replicated or not. Machines do not have any emotions and moral values. They perform what is programmed and cannot make judgment of right or wrong. Even cannot take decisions if they encounter a situation unfamiliar to them. They either perform incorrectly or break down in such situations. What are the views for our speakers? What are your views? Both can answer. This is a question for Sir Solidon. So either of that or both can answer, Ms. Karina or Sir Diamante. So what are your views on the idea shared by Sir Solidon regarding intelligence being a gift of nature and how AI works and functions? Who would like to go first? I think Sir Carl? Yes, Sir Carl.
Good afternoon once again, everyone. So thank you very much, Sir Solidum, for your question. I would just like to repeat the question for everyone. So intelligence is believed to be a gift of nature. Yes, that's true. An ethical argument continues whether human intelligence is to be replicated or not. So that is the main question of Sir Solidum, whether it is ethical to replicate human intelligence. And the question, therefore, is, as of the meantime, we have what we call narrow artificial intelligence, which is also highlighted by Sir Solidum's statement, wherein they cannot perform what has not been programmed to them. They cannot make decisions, for example, when they encounter a situation unfamiliar to them. But there are also instances wherein artificial intelligence can be able to make decisions given situations which have not been presented to them before. This is called unsupervised learning, wherein the artificial intelligence, based on the training data, can learn things which have not been taught to it at all. Now, this is a very serious threat and a concern that we have to face, which is why we are pushing for and lobbying for the responsible adoption of artificial intelligence. Should human intelligence be replicated? In a sense, there is a moral obligation on the part of researchers to make sure that we teach it the right things. However, there is the question of whether or not it will learn the right things on its own, or if it will develop certain aspects, like, for example, the example I gave about Microsoft Tay, wherein it was subjected to the more vindictive and the more toxic traits of human personality. So when it comes to that, there are cases wherein if we were to replicate human intelligence, a lot of lives could be saved. For example, in healthcare, there is an artificial intelligence program called AlphaFold, which is used for modeling protein folding. Now that is usually something that we allow for chemists and medical technologists to do, so that we could model medical situations wherein we could produce new drugs or produce new medicines. Usually, that relies on human intelligence. If we could leverage artificial intelligence to make life-altering decisions which could benefit human society, that is a very good thing. However, with every good thing, there's always something that we should be aware of. Despite artificial intelligence mimicking human intelligence being a good thing in some cases, there is always the possibility for it being abused. And there's also the ability or the capability of artificial intelligence going awry. Now, that is something that has to be a very big concern, especially to us who are living in a country that is basically still in the natal stage of adopting AI. Now, whether or not we put those safeguards in place is up to our government and up to our thought leaders in the country. But I really hope that we make those safeguards in place in time and in due process. So thank you very much, sir. Again, there is good and bad in both situations where AI can replicate human intelligence. It's not just a question of yes, AI is good, yes, AI is bad. There is always the gray area wherein it can be used for good and it can be used for bad. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Sir Carl. So definitely it depends upon who is manning and controlling the AI. So Miss Karina.
I think Sir Carl was able to explain it very well. I just like to add, Miss, that we really cannot say that AI is totally good. But in terms of replicating intelligence, you just have to regulate it. That's why also we are trying to raise awareness among people on the potential threats also of AI. Because usually, just like what other, every time they would hear artificial intelligence, tendency of people is they back away. Now, with the use, with regard to the question of Sir Solidum, I think, sir, it really boils down to how we use it or how we program our artificial intelligence that it would not be it would not bring danger to our society because there are already AI also which are used for weaponry, which is very dangerous for humankind. But then, using artificial intelligence, it's also good if it is to further or improve services for our citizens.
So thank you very much, Ms. Karina and Sir Carl. So definitely AI, as mentioned a while ago by Sir Carl, it's a double-edged technology. It's a double-edged gift to the society. It can either be good or bad, but it depends upon the people how to use it. So as mentioned, if it gives us the efficiency to manage data, but there is also a possibility of abusing it that might be used against us. So as mentioned a while ago, if you are doing some researches, putting some data online, it can be used against you. Like maybe your account will be hacked, your data will be used by other people, there will be posters using your information, so on and so forth. So thank you, Sir Solidong, for that question. So can we have other participants? Any more questions from our participants? Because I think we need to discuss these things. As mentioned by Ms. Karina, a lot of people are shying away from AI. Because if you are not familiar with it, if you're not aware about what AI is, you get to have a mindset that it's only for those people who are expert in the field. But right now, we would like to present it that no, it's not. It is open for all. It's open for everyone to learn. At the same time, we need to do so. Because as mentioned, it's ubiquitous, it's here, it's the now, it's the future of the society. Might as well learn about it so that instead of being fearful about what we do not know, better learn about it so that we can better prepare ourselves, especially that there are some jobs that might be replaced because of automation. Because it's not maybe automation, but because AI is there to replace such work in the society. So that's why it's either we stay comfortable where we are or we need to upskill or reskill ourselves because we need to prepare for the 4.0 industrial revolution. Anything more? Do we have any participants who'd like to share their ideas or have any questions to our speaker? Especially that we have here from issues on the government, as mentioned by Sir Carl. It's good to have AI to cut down the red tape, which is really known in the Philippines. But what's the downside of it? Okay, in the education, we can have efficiency, but what will happen to the learning of the students? As teachers, as faculty, as professors, maybe you have something in mind that maybe you have some ideas that you think will be happening in your school. Will your school be applying AI? Is your school ready for AI? Any school? I think we have here Adamson, we have here Mariano Marcos State University from Ilocos, we have here Colegio San Agustin Bacolod, we have here University of San Agustin Iloilo. Maybe Cebu and Quirino University are here. So question is, are our schools ready for AI? As teachers, as faculty, are we ready to become adaptive, or are we ready to adopt and use AI technology in our teaching? Are we ready to use AI when we process our government papers, when we get our licenses, when we go to, say, for example, when we go to the PhilHealth, we go to Pag-ibig, GSIS for some. Are we ready to face the LGUs with AI technology, or we will be shocked, or we will be questioning why use such technology? Anyone? Because this is a good time, I think, to discuss things, because I know that majority of us are new with the topic. So hopefully, how are we prepared regarding the cost in developing, from Mr. Sulidum again, AI, especially in government and in academia? Asia Pacific spending on AI systems will reach $5.5 billion this year, up 80% from 2018. So Sir Solidong shared a data. So our dear speakers, Ms. Karina and Sir Diamante. So Sir Solidong shared that Asia Pacific spending on AI system will reach 5.5 billion. But how about our government? How about the school? Are we ready for the cost? Are we ready for the finances? Any of our speakers can answer the question.
Ms. Des?
Ms. Karina. Yes, Ms. Karina, good afternoon.
To answer Sir Solidum's question, in academe, how prepared are we? If you would ask me personally, if we are looking at the whole education system, I'd say that we are not really prepared in the adoption of AI, because it's true that it would really take a lot of amount in order to make this one possible. And as I had mentioned earlier, we really need to develop also technological structures and consider also the other schools, the smaller schools that might be affected in case we are to really adopt AI in the academe. So I think that is my take, sir, regarding your question.
Thank you. Thank you, Ma'am Karina. If I may add,
Yes,
regarding
Carl.
Sir Solidum, how are we prepared regarding the cost in developing AI, especially in government and the academe? So the question when it comes to integration of AI, it's not just you're gonna buy the product and you can just immediately implement it. You also need AI technicians. You also need infrastructures on board in order to support your artificial intelligence. You need a lot of processing power in order to be able to run artificial intelligence. As of the meantime, as we can see our current situation regarding our economy right now, it is in the short term, it is very expensive. But in the long run, we could see a lot of savings, especially when it comes to our optimization of some tasks which require manual work. And another thing that I would like to add is artificial intelligence is becoming more and more cost effective by the day. There will come a time wherein artificial intelligence will be so cost effective that almost anyone can access it. An example is open source AI, which I have actually stated a while ago. There are some artificial intelligence algorithms which are open source now, wherein anybody can access them. There will come a time wherein major breakthroughs in artificial intelligence will allow governments to have a more cost-effective scheme in acquiring artificial intelligence. But as of the meantime, because of its novelty, AI is still pretty expensive. However, if I may repeat the lessons of history, back then, people working in the fields thought that machines would not take over their jobs. However, the Industrial Revolution came along, and then boom, people were just surprised that their jobs were taken from them. The moral of the story is, although as of right now, we may not have the tools and resources or even the infrastructure and personnel capable of manning a fully AI integrated government and academe, we have to prepare nonetheless, because we will never know when we will have something just like the Industrial Revolution, wherein we are caught off guard and we have not prepared adequately.
Thank you very much, Sir Carl and Ms. Karina. Truly, indeed, that's the reality of the society right now. As mentioned by Sir Carl, people or the society just woke up one day that the machines are trying to replace them with some type of works that the machines can already do on its own. And just to share, during the December 19 discussion, coming from a machine learning engineer, he said actually that it's like a hotcake right now. The AI is like a hotcake at present, as mentioned, because it's really rare, it's booming. However, they are looking forward, even them, as ML engineers, as data scientists, they're looking forward that in the coming years, they might also be not really, they won't never go extinct, but less of their talents, less of their expertise will be needed. For the very reason that there is a possibility mentioned as a while ago, we have the basic AI technology. But when we reach a certain level wherein the AI is already self-learning, as shared by the ML engineer, definitely the engineers will no longer be needed, for the very reason that the AI is learning on its own, developing technology and developing information on its own, because the engineers have already developed such programming in the AI. That means to say there is already a built-in technology and programming development. So just imagine, even the creators are also worrying that they no longer be significant in the AI technology. So how much more if we will not be preparing? So as mentioned by the speakers, we should prepare. In any sectors that we belong, in any professions that we are in right now, we should always be prepared at all times. And I think what we have to do right now is to, I think, embrace the technology, be able to work, allow it to work for us and not work against us. Because at the end, as mentioned by Sir Solidum a while ago, intelligence is a gift from nature, it's a gift from God. So that means to say human society is above everything else. That human society is above the machines, is above AI technology. We should be the ones controlling the machine. We should be the ones controlling the technology, not the other way around. Even the engineer mentioned that there will become a possibility, there will come a time that if we are not careful, if we will not put into place the ethics, the moral responsibility, and we will not be very careful in applying AI in our society, especially for a more developed world or developed countries, AI might be detecting weaker elements or weaker personalities and might eliminate those weaker elements. And maybe, who can tell, it might include the human society. So that's why, as of this time, we're really pushing and we are really campaigning for a more responsible, more ethical, more accountable use of AI. And that's why we are really appealing to everyone to help us and work with us to make sure that the policy is in place. This is a big work, we know that, because policy development, asking a policy maker to lobby for the work is really a big thing. But this is just an assurance for everyone to survive, to ensure that there is the so-called sustainable environment and society, more so in the Philippines because we are a developing country. And just to add on to Sir Solidom, as mentioned by Ms. Karina also, cost, indeed, the cost will be very costly as of this time. And what happens is the big players will stay, the small players might be extinguished or might go extinct. So what happens? Wherever or whatever sectors you are coming from, may it be from the academe, may it be from the fishing industry, from the transport, from the finance, if AI will be on a full blast, that means to say fully operational, fully implemented, fully adopted, given that based on the SAIL 1.0 project, on the data of the SAIL 1.0 project, UAE and Saudi Arabia are putting so much investment in AI. So we are lobbying for this because if we have a good foresight, we should protect our OFWs because they become redundant. they might be no longer needed in those countries wherein a lot of OFWs are coming from Saudi Arabia, from UAE. If we will not be foreseeing what will be the effect of AI to these countries investing so much in AI, we might, as mentioned by Sir Carl, we might wake up in one morning, one day, that we have now so much OFWs coming home more than what we have during the pandemic, having no jobs, families having no livelihood. So everything must be in place. Okay, so I'd like to share the thoughts and ideas shared by Sir Kurt Granila in our chat box. The Philippine E-Government Master Plan 2022, AI was mentioned exactly once in the document. The whom, I think, Sir Kurt, you're just like, can we do it? Actually, why are the Philippine government pushing this one? Because the neighboring countries are now moving forward. As mentioned, Saudi Arabia, UAE are really investing so much. Sir Carl mentioned San Francisco has already, I think, integrated in their city. So we have to cope, and we have to cope fast with this, even just not in the technology, maybe having a policy first in place. Yes, Father Tito?
I would like to reiterate what I have mentioned earlier, that one of the main reasons for these webinars is to create a, an awareness campaign, and at the end of the day, to bring this campaign to the halls of Congress, in a sense, to help our legislators to come up with programs not only for its ethical dimensions, but also to come up with policies that will jumpstart the economy, that will lead towards AI adoption. As a matter of fact, uh, prior to the sale project, Mr. Nicanor Perlas, who is a major influencer of this of project of project sale, has been invited to the Senate, no, during the time of Senator Bamakino, to discuss, as Senator Bamakino was the erstwhile Science Committee chair, and he was actually kind of shocked that that the government was not, at that time, was not seriously involved in the AI development. So even Senator Bamakino was kind of concerned about the government lagging behind. And so the call at that time was really to create this momentum of how are we going to catch up with our neighbors. And this is, in a sense, as I've said, this is a small way that the school is working on, that hopefully by creating this awareness campaign, no, this bringing to the to our thought leaders, as what Carl mentioned a while ago, is to raise this awareness to a level that everybody will be concerned about it, no, from the academe to the technical people in government, and to our people in the business sector. And I'm happy to some extent that I'm seeing signals that we are working towards that direction. So that's why I'm a little bit concerned that because of the COVID crisis, the AI concerns might be sidetracked. That the real uh, crucial efforts will be beyond the COVID. And I think it is good that that the school did not abandon these AI discussions, because at the end of the day, this is going to be one of the most serious concerns we will be facing. Before we talk about the concern of the ethical dimension, which is a very important aspect of artificial intelligence. What is important that through this webinars, through this campaign, we should inform a vast majority of our people about the positive and the negative externalities of artificial intelligence. Indeed, yes, this is going to be very challenging. No, there's going to be a lot of money that will be needed in investment of resources, in equipment, in gadgets, and also in the development of the capacities of the citizenry in coming up with a educated citizenry towards developing our country in the fourth industrial revolution in the 21st century. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Father Tito. So, any more participants would like to share his or her ideas or ask questions to our speakers? From Adamson University, I think we have here also from University of San Agustin. We have also from Mariano, Marcos State University. Any questions or clarifications or any sharings after attending this webinar? After attending this webinar, hopefully we have raised your awareness on what AI is. And then you get to share the ideas that you have learned from this webinar, and hopefully you get to encourage them to join the next two sessions that will be on December 28 and 29. So I think Sir Solidom give chance to others asking questions. I think he still has one question to ask. Okay, sir, for our final question, I think Sir Solidom has so many things in his mind. Yes, Sir Solidom. Last question coming from you. Yes, sir.
Hi, ma'am. Yeah, sorry.
It's okay, sir. Actually, this is an awareness campaign, so we encourage people to ask questions and share ideas. Go ahead, Sir Solidom.
Yes. I'm asking questions because I'll be teaching nursing informatics next sem. So one of the topics will be artificial intelligence with regards to the nursing care, because as we all know, nursing is caring, right? So there is a sense of human side that in order for our patients to feel the care, I don't know if the artificial intelligence can provide that human touch, especially in caring for patients, just like as nurses do. That's my other question, Ma'am Jer. How can an artificial intelligence provide a human touch to our patients?
Okay, so sir is asking if can AI be able to deliver the nursing care that the human can give to the patients? Speakers, I know this is outside your topic, but in general, can AI be able to deliver the human care, the so-called human care and human touch that a real human nurse can give to the patients? Actually, Sir Solidom, just for your information, there is one sector of the so-called health sector under the SAIL 2.0 project. But they are discussing more on the application of AI in terms of diagnostic, delivering care, but not really delivering the so-called human care. But I'd like to ask Ms. Karina and Sir Carl, what's your take on this one? Can AI be able to, if not replace, at least be at par with the human nurses that are delivering bedside care to the patients, especially during this pandemic?
Okay, thank you so
Yes,
much
sir.
for the question. Sir Solidom, the question was whether or not AI could be able to provide that human touch. Now, of course, that lies in the ambiguity of the definition of what we consider human touch. However, I believe that artificial intelligence has some capabilities. What capabilities are these? We have sentiment analysis, and there are some chatbots which can replicate, for example, talking to your family members, especially people who are living off in faraway areas. Although they may not be able to behave like humans and they are just basically replicating human speech, sometimes all we need is somebody to talk to. And that's one of the more, shall I say, human like aspects of artificial intelligence. You can talk to an artificial intelligence and it will respond to you in a way that you will find comforting. So that's perhaps one way where AI could be somewhat human like, although, as you may know, it's a computer talking to you. But it can replicate these things. Now, that was a question of whether or not it could be used for such applications. That's one of the applications. As long as the patient can suspend their disbelief that they are talking to a computer, they can perhaps vent out their frustrations. Like, for example, they are a terminal patient. An artificial intelligence could perhaps respond based on the sentiments being given by that patient, although it somewhat defeats the purpose of the human touch because it is responding in a way that it knows the person will be able to feel better. In a way, it's like it's like when you're in class and you're giving the teacher the answer that you know that the teacher will like. That's basically it. So sometimes the human touch is the aspect of sincerity. Now, how could you be sincere if the artificial intelligence is probabilistic in nature, wherein it will give you a response that it believes has the highest probability of perhaps making you feel better or making your health or in a way comfort you. So there is that aspect of sincerity which comes into question. But if you can suspend your disbelief, then you can pretend you're talking to a person. That's one thing that AI can do.
Thank you, Sir Carl. So that means to say, sir, at least sometimes in this very busy world, we cannot have somebody to talk to, and AI can deliver that. But the note of Sir Carl is make sure that you know and you understand that you are not talking to a human individual and you are aware that you are talking to a computer, because that will be another issue if you believe that the person that you're talking that the person that you're talking to is a real one. So Sir Carl is emphasizing make sure that you get to suspend, that you are believing that that person is really a human individual, but it is a computer that you are discussing or dealing with. Yes, Miss Karina, anything more to share?
It's just an additional info mismo, as to whether AI could really provide the human touch, because sometimes AI make use of camera or voice recognition in order to touch the emotions, like when they are like a certain AI tech for students or children, they can detect a child's emotional state. So I think if we cannot really say before, we're just saying AI in films, and it's not really, according to Elon Musk. He said that it's not a question of what if but when. So we cannot really say what will happen soon. Is it possible that AI would go to that further extent that it can provide certain human emotion or touch that we need?
I would just like to add now, Ms. Jal.
Sir, go ahead.
There are also artificial intelligence capabilities which can model a human face. And these are also sometimes called deep fakes, but they can mimic how people would react. Now, the question is the ethical concern. If you can mimic, for example, a dead wife or a dead husband, that would be very creepy. And it would perhaps bring you out of the experience. And it would perhaps, I don't know, dehumanize the aspect of dealing with grief. So that's also another concern about AI.
So indeed, there are,
Episode,
yeah,
an episode of Black Mirror.
yeah. So Actually,
Ma'am
they
Jael?
they can be helpful, yes, but make sure that we are using it appropriately and it's therapeutic rather than making helping the person develop or creating a make-believe world. So at the same time, as mentioned by Ms. Karina, according to Elon Musk, it's not a question of is it possible, but it's a question of time. Given the technology is really moving fast and moving forward, so it's possible in the near future. We'll never know just when. Okay, but it's there is a possibility wise, yes, possible. But how human touch is delivered and how human is human touch coming from the AI, that we will know until we arrive to that certain time. So, anything more before we finally end this very interesting, very enriching discussion?
Ma'am Jael, can I ask
Yes,
just
sir. Yes,
last
sir,
question?
Sir
There's
Vincent. Yes,
Okay.
go ahead.
Sir Carl and Ma'am Karen, since you're the speakers here regarding the awareness of the AI, as a person, how do you feel about this AI? What's your just disregard everything that you know about AI? How do you feel about this artificial intelligence as a human being?
Would like to go first,
Yeah.
Sir Carl? Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So thank you so much, Sir Vincent, for your questions. I really do appreciate, especially when I teach in class, I appreciate the students that ask a lot of questions. And when I'm a speaker, I appreciate the participants who ask a lot of questions because that's where we move the discussion forward. Now, when it comes to my personal take on artificial intelligence, I believe that it is the next step forward. For example, we have artificial intelligence that can make leaps and bounds when it comes to the medical field. We could perhaps even use artificial intelligence to develop new drugs because artificial intelligence is capable of doing things that humans would never even think of doing because they are repetitive, they require a lot of computational analysis, and AI works like a child basically. At first, it doesn't know what it's doing. Over time, it will repeat a process and find out which works and what does not. However, unlike a human child, an AI technology could simulate years in a couple of seconds because of the computational abilities that we have right now. Now, on my personal take, I believe that it has a lot of potential for advancing the human society, but I am very wary of the potential of it for abuse, especially considering the modern climate wherein we are highly susceptible to trolling and fake news, and we are highly susceptible to emotional manipulation, especially whenever we use our social media. Because the Philippines is one of the countries in the world that spends a lot of time on social media, not so much on productive work. So the more time we spend on these applications, which have AI capabilities, which could perhaps twist our version of reality, it is a very serious threat, especially people who are not very aware that AI is working in the background and then manipulating the ads that it shows you or the news reports that it shows you. It even sometimes gives you blogs instead of news articles from reputable websites. It has a potential for worsening the situation despite its exponential ability to improve the human situation. We as humans still need to do the decisions as to how AI moves forward. Is it a good thing that we have AI? Absolutely. It will help us move forward. But we as a society must move forward before so that we could make sure that AI moves forward in the right direction and not in the direction of autocracy or other toxic human personality traits that we have as a society. Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Carl. Uh, Thank you, Sir Vincent, also for that question. My take on this, sir, I agree with Sir Carl. AI would really be helpful for the society. When I first also hear like this, our campaign, our project about I was a little bit kind of skeptic about this one also because I don't know what it is. But when you try really to uh, learn about it, you would really understand how it works. And I am for AI for as long as it will be regulated. And I think it is not really AI that should not we must really fear, but it is the humans behind AI that are far more dangerous compared to this. Because after all, we are the ones trying to operate. We're the ones making this artificial intelligence technologies. So that is my take, sir. We just have to really regulate this one and go for responsible adoption.
Artificial intelligence on its own is amoral, not immoral, it's amoral. It doesn't have morals. It cannot distinguish right from wrong because right and wrong is basically a human concept which perhaps computers cannot even wrap their heads around because it's a very human thing. Now, the susceptibility of AI to human biases is a very real threat, but it also has the ability to adapt our better nature. So the choice is up to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Carl. So, Father, anything more to say, Father?
Actually, I'm very happy about the direction of our conversation because we are now moving, in a sense, we're transitioning from a very technical issue to an existential issues, no, like what matters to us as human beings, of us as humanity. And actually, this is actually the core of the discussion. It it uh, the, the talk about the artificial intelligence is hitting the center of our being a human being. As a matter of fact, the ultimate objective, no, of artificial intelligence, if we will be quoting Stephen Hawking and other scientists, the ultimate objective of artificial intelligence is the end of humanity. Because at the end of the day, the evolution, we don't really know how AI is going to evolve. And now and precisely because of this danger of how artificial intelligence will evolve, now there is a challenge for humanity, for the Homo sapiens, on how we should evolve as a people, as human beings. Are we going to evolve as a technical people, or on the other side, are we evolving as spiritual beings? So eventually, these questions will come into this, uh, will crop up, and I think, without saying in a direct manner, the conversations that was been raised by Sir Solido and the answers by Carl and Karina is leading to a conversation that is much deeper. And I think we essentially addressed the essential uh, uh, the essential meaning of what AI is all about. Are we becoming more human? Are we becoming more material? So I think these are existential questions, which uh, luckily that these webinars where we are discussing is going beyond what we are proposing, and I'm happy about this because we are talking about what is of the essence. And I hope that in the coming days, this this is this concerns will be further discussed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Father Tito. So truly, this afternoon is really a meaningful and very enriching one because, as mentioned by Father, it's not only us discussing and being aware of what AI is and it's a technical level, but we are realizing more of the importance of the humanity of the human society over and above everything else. So that being said by our speakers, Ms. Karina Jimenea, Mr. Carl Lawrence Diamante, thank you very much for this very enriching, this very meaningful, insightful discussion. So, as with our participants, thank you very much for taking time with us. And hopefully, we are actually planning together with the team under the supervision of Father Tito Suquino as the project director, together with Sir Hilado as the project manager, with the researchers and the whole team. We will not be ending this December because the idea in here is to make sure that more people are aware, more people will be learned about what AI and its societal impact is, for us to have a bigger group to move forward and to ensure that everything is in place and policies will be in place so that things will be in the right track. Just a reminder, we will be sending the evaluation forms to your emails. Then please do fill it out. And after filling it out, we'll also be sending your e-certificates. And we are also encouraging and inviting you after this very meaningful and substantial and very enriching discussion. Hopefully, we are looking forward that you're going to join us in this advocacy campaign. We will be sending out a signature campaign with the hope, with the high hopes, and with the intention of bringing that signature campaign to our policymakers for them to come up with policies and laws that will help us use the AI in the correct manner or in a more responsible adoption. So hopefully will be joining us, and you are free to share the signature campaign forms. And then if you have more time by December 28th, same time, 1:30 to 3:30, because it's very enriching. We exceeded 3:30 and we're happy with that because we're taking time. So on December 28th, we will have finance. We will have Ma'am Delphine for agriculture, fishing, and for forestry. We will have Mr. Hinolan. And for December 29th, that's the last session for this year, we will have manufacturing by Ms. Madrid, and we will have administration by Mr. Lexus Delphine. See you on December 28th and 29th, same time. We will be sending you through your email the Google Meet link. And we would like to extend on behalf of the SAIL 2.0 project. We would like to thank everyone for taking time and sharing your time, your ideas, and your interest with us to join in this campaign.